Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Rent Prep for Landlords. This is episode number 228, Steve.
I love it.
Love it.
It's not a milestone number, but it looks nice. 228.
Yeah. It seems like that'd be like an address like I'd like to live at. Like, oh, yeah, I live at 228, but like last week was 227. It's like,
Yeah.
Well, it's 228.
All right. We got a good episode today in the news.
Yeah.
Bringing that back.
We've got a pretty ridiculous one we're going to share with you coming from, of course, the UK. We've got some local news we're going to share. And, it's going to be good. But we got a little bit of intro music to roll.
Hit it. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. Welcome to the Rent Prep for Landlords podcast. And now your hosts, Stephen White and Eric Worrell.
Steve, I feel like we should just go right to it.
With what? The warning that title of this actual article has a explicit content on it?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say more so. We're going to get right to the fun one.
Yeah. I love this one.
So
Title grabbed my attention for sure. Are we bleeping or are we shortening?
It's up to you.
Let's shorten.
Okay, we're going to shorten it. This comes from the dailymash.co.uk. So this is coming from the British brothers from across the pond. So the title of this one is Landlord Won't Allow Pets, but Will Allow F-Off Hole in Roof.
An F-off hole, which at first, if we weren't sure what it was, but when you read through the article, you get what they mean by an F-off hole.
Yeah. So this is a shorter article, so I'm just going to read the entire article for you here. And I don't believe we have we don't have an author behind it, so we just have to give credit to the Daily Mash. So a landlord has confirmed that he will not allow pets, but that a large hole in the roof does not infringe his strict rules. So Wayne Hayes, owner of 7 investment properties, enforces a no shoes on carpet policy. I like that.
Yeah,
that's strict.
Doesn't allow toasters and warns that blue track marks, which we figured out are like command strips.
Yeah.
Right, the little sticky stuff you put on the walls in lieu of pounding nails in there.
Yeah, if you use those blue tack strips, you will automatically forfeit your deposit. But he's surprisingly lax on the rain coming in. So he said, "My properties are my future, and looking after them is only good sense, except when it's not." What does he mean, Steve?
Well, he said, the fact is that we've had a quote to fix the roof, and it simply isn't competitive when compared to the long-standing bucket solution that we already have. So fixing it doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't know that because you're only a tenant. Probably not the best thing to say to your tenant.
Well, which part? The fact of calling it a bucket solution, or are you saying you wouldn't know that because you're only a tenant?
Yes. The last sentence would just enrage, just based on the feedback we get from tenants.
I'm not even a tenant, and I think it would bother me if you told me that.
The comments we get from tenants on the blog, that is absolutely something that you're going to motivate that person to go out of their way to make your life a living hell.
I believe they call that poking the bear.
Yes, you're poking the bear if you say something.
Slapping the bee's nest.
Yeah, if you say something that stupid and provocative, like you wouldn't know because you're only a tenant, or you wouldn't understand because you don't own a home, that might be what you're thinking. Please resist the urge to say that.
Well, I know what you guys are thinking as you're listening. You'll be like, really? He said that? Well, it gets worse. So next up, he says, "I didn't see you complain during the heat wave when it was providing ventilation. You need to take more responsibility for your own living conditions. Getting it fixed professionally at your own expense would be a step towards that." So the tenant, Tom Booker, said, "We moved in here because the rules made it seem like the house would be clean and well looked after. And then last month, I asked him if the shower would ever get fixed, and he claimed it's on the Tennessee agreement that I should be a member of a gym."
Love it. Here's what I love about this. The last 2 sentences from the tenant really brings it home, right? So this is the tenant's point of view. If you do, I know a lot of landlords are always thinking or concerned, if I make my lease agreement 50 pages and it's too strict, I'm going to scare people off. What's the right combination? What's the right blend? What's the right recipe for something like that? In some cases, like in this tenant's case, he saw that as good. Like, oh, there's a lot of rules here. This place is going to be well kept. I abide by all these rules. Obviously, I don't have a pet. I don't care about the command strips on the wall. Mm-hmm. I'm good. I can take my shoes off at the door. This is a good tenant in my view. Somebody that's willing to abide by some pretty strict rules and has it in their head that this is going to be a well looked after, well kept place because of this. And you get a ridiculous answer like, well, the bucket solution is working out just fine, so we're going to leave that hole in the roof.
Yeah, and it's actually providing some really nice ventilation during the heat waves, so consider yourself lucky.
And obviously the fact that you should get a gym membership so you can shower.
It's the least you could do.
Right.
Be a responsible tenant. Buck up.
Right. It is insanity to me. But again, we've said it a million times. One bad apple can ruin the bunch. People get this in their mind that all landlords are like this and have this mindset. We know it's not true, but this landlord's not doing the rest of us any favors at all.
Yeah.
And
for some reason, I'm getting the visual of like a used car salesman, who's kind of lacking some scruples, you could say.
Yeah.
Is that a legit way of saying that?
I think so.
Unscrupulous?
Yeah.
Is that what I'm looking for?
I think
but
so.
They're like, what's with this hole in the roof? And you're like, oh, no. That's a moon roof. You haven't seen that style? It's like got more of like a fist kind of punched hole through it. That's great for ventilation when, because the AC sometimes gets rickety.
Right. A lot of people love water coming into their car and the smell of mildew.
This apartment has a waterfall feature. Only when it rains.
Yeah. Obviously,
Frank Lloyd Wright would have been big on that, right?
Right, for sure.
Yeah, he loves incorporating nature into his architecture.
I think it's important for landlords to remember that, yes, it's a rental. Yes, they're tenants. I get that they're not homeowners. But at the end of the day, especially if you got a nice place and you're getting a decent amount for rent and you got a lot of rules, people want to be proud of the place they're living in. Fix that stuff up. Patch the hole up. Jeez.
Tell him, Steve.
Man, crazy to me.
Preach, brother. All right.
So, yeah, obviously not a problem limited to just the UK. We hear these stories in the US as well. So be a good landlord. Do the right thing.
All right. So this next one, it isn't as much fun in my opinion, but I thought it was a really good article. This was published on October 3rd by therealdeal.com, which is New York State real estate news. And this one I thought was interesting because it's talking about Williamsburg, which is, I guess you would call it a town, city. What would you say? Town in New York?
Yeah, suburb outside of the city.
Yeah.
Just outside of New York City.
The article says that Williamsburg commercial landlords latest to drop prices ahead of L train shutdown. So one landlord dropped rents 15%. So Steve, I know that you have a little bit more familiarity with this because you were just in New York City, you said?
I was in New York City. I noticed that there was quite a few
you there for hockey?
Out routes. No, actually it was just for fun.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, not hockey related. But yeah, I was there and I noticed like, oh man, this has got to, my first thought was this has got to really screw things up. And I didn't even think, I was thinking more in terms of business because I have, in my own personal experience, my wife and I have a hair salon and we opened the hair salon in the middle of a small town going through a revitalization. And it was, we went into it knowing that we're going to take a hit on this in the beginning. This is going to be tough. There's a ton of construction. They're ripping streets. They're ripping out sidewalks, everything. But we saw the plans of what it planned to look like, what this main street, planned to look like when it was done. And we thought, well, that's a good investment there. We can get in cheap now, suffer as much as we have to, or as much as we can possibly suffer. And then when this becomes a revitalized Main Street area that people are coming to and people want to come down and walk through Main Street, we're in the best spot, perfect location. I see something like this. If you already own property there, yeah, you're gonna eat it for the next couple of years.
Well, this particular one says while asking for rents for residential real estate have dipped $250 since 2016, commercial landlords are now starting to offer discounted space as well. The one broker, Peter Schubert of Terra CRG, told the outlet that a landlord he represents has offered a tenant a 15% discount on its rent, and this discount aligns with the predicted drop in visitation to the area before the rail line reopens in 2020.
So if I'm an investor in this area, I am absolutely bargain hunting right now, knowing that I've got 2 years until the rail opens and prices can go back up and everything kind of balances itself back out and goes back to normal. This is a perfect investment opportunity.
Yeah. It said that in 2016 that they were finding new homes were sitting on the market, and one of them was up to 188 days in that area in Williamsburg just because of the L train not being available. Because who wants to buy if that's your main means of transportation to get into the city where you might work? The L train's not available, but yeah, once it becomes available and it's even a nicer train because they've dumped $300-400 million into it, whatever the number is, that's going to be a pretty nice area to live. I mean, it's kind of it's sad, but the same thing happened with 9/11, right? There were a lot of people who panicked and left the city, and then there was other people who were investors who knew buy low, sell high kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything, I know that you have some content coming up talking about zoning and future tax laws and things like that. And it's specifically about real estate investors who have the option or opportunity to purchase properties in areas that are zoned and ready to be rehabilitated, basically areas that are ready to turn, right? So these are low income, lower on the class scale as far as what these properties are. I'm sure you're not going to get great rents to begin with, but I know that in our local area, Buffalo, New York, there's so many neighborhoods that have just completely turned around. And if you were smart enough or fortunate enough to get in during that stretch when it was really, really low, it is paying off huge right now.
Yeah.
So,
if you're curious, you can look it up. It's called Opportunity Zones. If it's new to you, it was definitely new to me a couple weeks ago. It has to do with the new tax plan that started in 2017. But some of you may remember Mark Kohler, who we've had on the podcast. We're working to set up an appointment with him to do a live Facebook video interview with him, where we're going to be discussing the difference between 1031 exchanges and opportunity zones, and really getting into what the opportunity is for landlords and investors in these rural and low-income markets. So hopefully, I don't know if it'll be next podcast or the one after that, but I'm hoping to get a little bit more audio content that we can share with you on that. And then if you guys don't already follow our Facebook page, rentprep.com, you can go and check that out. That's where we're going to be hosting that live interview. But all this is all, scuttlebutt right now. But hopefully I'm in the middle of nailing down a time on that. So I'll keep you guys abreast on that.
Yeah. And Mark's awesome and definitely the go-to guy that I would trust to give you any kind of insight on that. And it's a double whammy. If you can purchase in an area that's turning, it's low income, plus you get some huge, huge tax benefits. And I'm talking not just a discount on
it makes
capital
a 1031
gains.
exchange look like a joke.
Yeah. When I saw that, I couldn't believe it. It's not just a discount on capital gains. It is you get out of any capital gains tax in some situations. So
yeah,
definitely stay tuned for that.
Well, moving forward, just to recap on the Williamsburg one, the takeaway to me is if you're going to buy property, make sure that especially if it's in a busy area where, public transportation is really important, make sure that you're aware of any possible looming projects, because that would be awful for somebody who bought right before this and didn't realize, oh my gosh, the L train is going to be closed for 2-3 years.
Good point. It may be a very wise idea, depending on what the cash flow situation is on a certain property, but to set aside, in this case, they're saying rents drop 15%. If you know something's ahead or you predict that maybe it could potentially be ahead, very smart on the landlord or homeowner's part to set aside that 15% as a safety net in case that does happen. And so, you've got that ready in case you have to eat it for a couple of years, like these poor people in Williamsburg.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, moving to our last in the news segment here. This comes from irishexaminer.com and from Fiarsha Oceanayathi. I don't know.
That's easy to pronounce.
Yeah, there's actually like tildes over the O. That's how you know it's really Irish.
Yeah.
Eamon Quinn and Daniel McConnell. I like that. An American Irish name, And sorry to any of our Irish listeners, who may have watched the last UFC fight. We know your boy Conor McGregor took a pretty good knock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you watch the highlights?
I did. Low lights.
Yeah. Well, it depends on who you're a fan of, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. But in case you didn't watch, the competitor Habib, he jumped over the cage and tries to attack Conor McGregor. And apparently they could press charges because that's an attack, which is crazy to me. But
well, they didn't pay him his purse either.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a bigger deal than anything, I think, to him right now is millions. You're fighting
it's all probably part of their marketing machine, to be honest.
This is the best thing that could have happened.
They were teeing up a rematch and like, look, we will pay you double your purse if you jump over the cage and attack people in him. Like, I feel like all that stuff it's borderline, wrestling.
Yeah, yeah.
WWE.
1980s WWF.
Yeah, brother.
Yeah.
All right. Well, went on a little bit of a tangent there, but Irish Examiner, I thought this one was interesting. This is an article that is talking about the fact that the government will confirm tomorrow. So I guess that would have been October 9th. Ooh, this is a pretty recent article. I get excited easily. So that landlords will be given 100% mortgage interest relief on any loan used to pay for a rental property from next year. It's a new scheme allowing landlords to write off 100% of their mortgage interest repayments on loans used to buy their rental property. It says that this is a high-level source, says that this means that they will be able to deduct 100% of the interest paid on borrowings for next year. Separate scheme involving a 4% annual capital gains tax relief capped at 5 years for landlords who buy and retain a rental property where someone is already living. And this is a part of a 3-year, €300 million affordable housing scheme, which sources claim could see 9,000 homes built a year and a €154 million housing assistance payment budget rise. We were kind of talking about this before we jumped on the air.
Yeah.
You're thinking that this sounds like in Ireland, and we share things that are from out of the U.S. because we do have listeners from out of the U.S., but also, sometimes these things come back and work their way around here. You think that they are going away from kind of government programs to where it's more so putting it on the private landlord.
Privatized low income, which is something that the U.S. did and has been working towards and doing, over the past 20 years. So, you've got housing vouchers, Section 8, wherever you are, you may call it something different, but we've moved away from government ran projects and now are putting it into the hands of private landlords. And I see this as being the exact same thing. They're trying to have these huge incentives for landlords, which, don't get me wrong, I mean, this would be amazing. Writing off 100% of your mortgage interest payments a year on that, and your credit on the capital gains. It's awesome. I don't know if we're going to move towards anything like this. This is super aggressive, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the thing we were mentioning before, the opportunity zones is super aggressive too. And some of that seems like it's in a similar sense where it's focused on low income areas.
Yep.
So, and it's meant to get people who have money encouraged to take that money, whether it be from a current rental property, it could be from your stock portfolio, it could be from a lot of different areas where you would be charged capital gains if you took that money out and put it into property, and they're incentivized to keep the property, kind of like this is, because it does say that the tax relief is capped at 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's also for rental property where somebody's already living.
Right.
Yeah.
I love it. I think that to me, it totally makes sense. I think that in areas where it's working, I think our local area would probably be a good example. I mean, to me, there's obviously these huge waiting lists in a lot of areas for people to get on, any kind of housing assistance or anything like that. But for the landlords and landlords who really know how to use it and work it well, this is a great opportunity to get some guaranteed rent payment, have some tax benefits, and even in the opportunity zones here in the U.S., if stuff like that starts catching on, or if we do start to incentivize, and put it more into the private sector versus, putting it on the government to take care of some bigger issues, it's perfect. I mean, it's going to turn around neighborhoods. It's going to turn around areas. It's obviously great if you're an investor. Yeah, I see it as all good things moving in the right direction. I think Ireland's probably just a little bit behind in terms of trying to privatize their, affordable housing market.
Yeah.
We're a few steps ahead on that, but we can obviously improve it.
Yeah. Sounds weird because I feel like we're not really considered a few steps ahead on stuff lately.
Yeah, I agree. But it makes sense that we'll continue to do that. And I think that the tax laws are going to continue to find ways to incentivize. I know, some real estate investors took a hit on 2017 taxes. Obviously, if you got little, changes like this along the way with the opportunity zones, things like that, there's some opportunity there to bounce back and regain a better position. So, yeah, I think it's always changing, just like the market. And like we always talk about, Eric, just investing in the market or doing our own thing. You got to be consistent. You got to be in the game, and you got to be, you got to know when to throw down and when to take it out.
Yeah, I like that. I like the way you put that.
Yeah,
I like it. Well, that's going to be wrapping up today's episode, but I wanted to throw a shout out to one of our clients, Chris Jensen. We're on Bigger Pockets, both Steve and I, and we get alerts on there when people kind of mention rent prep or different things like that. And we got this nice alert from Chris, who gave us a really nice shout out on a forum for somebody asking about tenant screening. And I'll throw it out there, feel free to connect with Steve and I on there. You'll find us both on Bigger Pockets. And if you would, I've made the offer in the past. If you're looking for a nice little freebie to send your way, I have some Rent Prep bandanas still. And if you connect with me on Bigger Pockets, feel free to shoot me a message. I'd be happy to ship one out to you for being a loyal podcast listener.
Yeah. And thanks, Chris, for giving me a perfect opportunity. I got the alert and just perfect timing, serendipitous. I was training a new screener just in the first couple of days and really hammering home the concept that we are really focused on our customer service. And I kept using the word helpful. And what do you know? Chris mentions Rent Prep and says how helpful we were and helping him get started with his, rental business and helping him get started as a landlord. And so it's awesome to hear. So thank you, Chris, genuinely. It's for sure appreciated. And like I said, perfect timing for a trainable moment.
All right. Well, I think that does it for this week, Steve.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric. See you guys next week.